Yeah. So when we are going through the book of Haggai, you remember I was talking about what to share, right? I was talking about what to share. So today I just want to extend that. Last week we touched 10 commandments of Jesus. It's not just 10, so don't think that it is 10. I just touched 10. So today I just want to talk. The other day I gave you the reference of stories of hope. So I want today to practice. How do you read a story of hope with someone? Yeah, so that's what we're going to learn. I'm going to give you 7 references on story of hope, different stories of hope. How do you pick stories of hope? Okay, pattern is this. Whenever you read in the Bible, the Lord speaks to you in many ways. Think of stories. Stories means actual things that happened where someone's life changed. You understand? It was in a hopeless situation and it changed. There was hope and there was a transition. So those kind of stories are there in Bible, so many. And we all need hope. We all, not just one of us, all of us need hope. So it is good to find stories like that in the Bible that you can read it with people. You understand? So always look at that kind of thing. See, there are multiple things written in the Bible, right? Like, you have miracles written, there are parables written. But stories of hope helps you to have a very good conversation because all of us love stories, right? So let me read one story from Luke 7, verse 36 to 50. And when you're reading that also, keep in mind the principles that we learned, that look at it in perspective, set the context. What do you see about God? What do you see about people? When you say lessons, you remember sin to avoid, be promised to be claimed, examples to follow, and commandments to obey. Let me read that story, okay? And when you read the story together, read it multiple times. Don't rush through any of the stories, okay? Um, let's take the story. Wait 1 second. Yeah. Luke 7, verse 36 to 50. Okay, I'm going to read that story. Then one of the Pharisees asked him, that is Jesus. Okay, you read it this way, okay? To eat with him. He went to the Pharisee's house, sat down to eat. Behold, a woman in the city who was a sinner. Now, these things should bring so much of, thinking into your mind. Think. Uh, Luke is telling this lady does not even have a name. The name is not called out. I want you to, when you read it, really picturize what is happening. Jesus is called for a meal in a Pharisee's house. Later, you see the name of the Pharisee, but the lady's name is not there. If you ask her definition, it is who was a sinner. Now, you will immediately think that all of us are sinners, right? All of us are sinners. But why this lady is called out specifically as sinner? Okay, because this is not like probably the level of sin that we can think it is really probably high. I'm saying think of all those things when you're reading. So you personalize it. She knew that Jesus sat at the table of Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of fragrant oil. All these are misfits, especially a sinner walking into a Pharisee's home when Jesus is sitting, where she's known as a sinner in the city, someone to walk in. Think of all those things. She has no credibility, zero credibility. If you think of this lady, Jesus himself said about this lady, verse 46, okay, or Let me read the story. Okay, so you get to know. So I want you to read. So I'm actually practicing. Okay, so today I'm not preaching. So if I'm reading with you, there's a way you should read, and read it first and then read it slowly. Just have a normal discussion. Okay. Verse 38, and stood at the feet behind him weeping. So I want you to imagine, sir, there's a lady who was standing behind the feet of Jesus weeping, and she began to wash his feet with tears. Now I just stood over there and thinking, how many of you have cried for whatever reason? But to wash someone's feet with your tears, how much you would have cried? Can you imagine? Jesus is sitting. So you want to wash someone's feet, just think that way. How much of water is required? Jewish time, you didn't have shoes and all this. So anyone who's you come to a house, to be a good host, you wash the feet of the person who's coming because the feet is dirty. This lady is washing the feet of Jesus with her tears and wiped with the hair, and she kissed his feet and anointed with them with the fragrant oil. Please, for a moment, think you are trying to do this. We'll come to this. Now, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself in his heart, this man, if he is a prophet, who know who and what manner of woman this is, who's touching him, for she is a sinner. The Pharisee did not tell it loud. He said that in his heart. You should know that. Jesus answered and said, Simon. Okay, now the Pharisee's name came out. Simon, I have something to say to you. So he said, teacher, say it. Please tell that. There is a certain creditor who had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 150. But when they had nothing with which to repay, he freely forgave both of them. Tell me, therefore, which one of them will love him more? Very simple question. Simon answered and said, I suppose, and look at the way he's answering, the one which he forgave more. And he said to him, you have rightly judged. You understand? This man already judged this lady in his heart. But that judgment was different. Jesus is telling, okay, now you judged it correctly. And he turned to the woman. Now Jesus is looking at this lady. When lady was doing all this, standing behind the feet of Jesus, crying, weeping, with the tears washing Jesus' feet, it's beyond what you can imagine. And then wiping Jesus' feet with the hair, anointing with the oil. Jesus now looks, after talking to Simon, he turned to the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? Simon? Simon already judged, also passed judgment. I entered your house, you gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of the head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since I came. You did not anoint my head with oil. This woman anointed my feet in fragrant oil. Therefore, I say to you, her sin. Look at what Jesus is telling about this lady, which are many. Huh? So this lady has so many sins. Jesus himself is telling this lady has so many sins are forgiven, for she loved much. To whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. Then he said to her, your sins are forgiven. Jesus said to that lady. Verse 48 is the greatest miracle in the world. Okay? The maker of the universe can look at you and say, your sin is forgiven. Got it? And those who sat at the table with him began to say to them, who's this who even forgives sin? Then he said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Now, let's do the sword mechanism, or what we have to suppose to. What do you see about God in this? What do you say? What do you say about Jesus in this? There are so many things that can come. I think in a Zoom mechanism, I don't know how it is easy for us to speak, but things that will come to my mind is that Jesus not speaking to that lady stood out to me initially. She's going, standing, and then Jesus speaking to Simon. See, Jesus could have condemned Simon, right? Just think, Simon, what you did is wrong. I don't want to talk, go. See, his long suffering, his graciousness, he does not want anyone to be lost. You all can read different stories out of all this, okay? What about people? Simon's attitude did not stop this lady, right? See, we can be very critical on Simon, but for a moment, we are like this, like Simon. I don't know what her sin is. I just say sinful lady. But it is known, in the city, it is known that this lady is sinful, so probably adulterous or a prostitute. I don't know what it is. But if it is something of that kind of sin, if someone like that comes to Jesus, what is your attitude? Like Simon? God, how come this lady? Are we the Simons? The religious Simon? Yeah, I am. I am. Think of the lady. What brought her to Jesus? Only clue we have is verse 37. When she knew that Jesus sat at the table, that's all we know, right? Did somebody share gospel to her? What prompted her to come to Jesus, stand next to the feet? Hmm? So there are 3 or 4 characters you see in this. Jesus, you see. Simon, you see. The sinful lady, you see. And the people sitting over there, right? You see four groups of people. So that's Jesus and the people, right? Now let's talk about the SPEC, okay? These are frameworks, okay? Just letting you know. And don't rush through reading, run through reading. I know I have challenged most of you to read the entire Bible in probably 3 months' time. That's also required, and proper, careful study is also required. Let's talk about number 1, sin to avoid. In this passage, do you see any sins to avoid? Simon, right? Probably good one. You can unmute and tell. We can have this as a conversation. What are the sins that you can see in this to avoid? Any one of you? Yeah? People judge. You can unmute and tell also. But yeah, most important thing that you can think of a sin that can be avoided. Do not define the destiny of anybody. Don't tell this guy is going there or this. But meanwhile, you need a discernment to identify sin also, you understand? It is one thing to tell this is a sin. It becomes a judgment saying that, hey, this person will not come to Christ. There's no hope for him. You're getting what I'm saying? See, we have taken it into 2 extremes, right? One, oh, we glorify all sin. Oh, this is not sin anymore. Don't go there. Sin is sin. But everyone has a hope. Jesus does not want anyone to be lost. You're getting what I'm saying? So somebody does a wrong thing, Bible says, right? Call the person, lovingly correct the person. And when you're lovingly correcting the person, always fear you yourself can fall into the similar sin or the same sin. You understand? When you're correcting someone, these are the principles. You think that you're not going to fall into that particular sin. I think you need to be careful. I don't know how qualified you are to go correct that sin. You understand? We like to correct sins, those things that we are not struggling, correct? If you have an anger issue, you don't like to correct a guy who has an anger issue. But you're strong in reading the Bible. If somebody doesn't read the Bible, you'll sit on top of that guy's head. And we like to be like that. Correct both, but correct it out of love. You can correct both the ways, okay? Let me just tell you an example. You can go to a person and say, you know one thing? Hey, anger is not good. But my dear friend, I am in a journey with you. I'm also struggling. Let's try to help each other because that's a sin. You understand? You can correct the same thing. The other one, Bible reading problem. Hey, at one point of time, I couldn't read it. Jesus helped me, you understand? So, same Jesus will help you. You understand? Be honest. Satan will tell you, no. Unless you actually fix this issue, don't correct it with anybody. No, that's not true. You understand? You can correct it out of fear and be honest, I just had two examples. One could be Bible reading where you're strong, anger, you're struggling. You see a person who's not reading the Bible, tell him. Jesus is helping. And I know even today I can lose that habit. It is the grace of God that I'm able to do it. Jesus will help you. And yes, I'm still working on it. I know I'm wrong, but I'm trying and I'm working and Jesus is helping me. I'm a work in progress. You understand? That's sin to avoid. There are a lot of things that you see in this, right? Example to follow. What is a good example to follow in this? The sinful lady. Oh, wow. Her address is that, sinful woman. What kind of definition is that? What caught my attention was what Jesus said, verse 47. Therefore I say to you, her sins, which are many. You saw that? Her sins are many. I want you to understand. Verse 38, how many ever times I read it, I don't think none of us will even get a grip of what that 38 is. Stood at his feet, behind him, weeping. Was there any point in your life where you wept like that for sin? This lady is not sick. Come on. This lady does not have cancer that she's going to die tomorrow. This lady does not have any material issues that is called out. She's not crying for that. What is she crying? What is she crying for? Have you thought about it? What is this lady crying for? What is she crying? The conviction of sin. Have we ever in our life had a conviction of sin like this? See, when you lead people to Christ, what you should long is two things. Two words, write it down. Godly conviction, godly consecration. It's so important. You remember Zacchaeus saying, Lord, if I've taken anything from anybody, I'll give it back. That's an absolute consecration. Lord, whatever it takes, I'll fix it. And then look at this. What kind of conviction? I don't know if she came with the intent of crying and weeping and crying. You think she planned from home? Yeah, I'll come cry at the feet of Jesus, wash Jesus' feet with my tears, wipe it with my hair, and then put oil on his leg. Was it planned? The Bible doesn't say that. I think it is not. The moment she started getting closer to Jesus, she could not control that conviction. I'm telling you, your journey towards Jesus will lead to this kind of godly conviction if you're coming for the right reason. Luke calls her a woman in the city who was a sinner. When she knew Jesus sat at the table, brought an alabaster flask of fragrant oil. Surrender is painful. Surrender is embarrassing. This lady is publicly calling out and telling to the entire world, guys, did you see this? I am a total mess. She didn't care. She only cared what Jesus thought. When we are going to heaven, if you are going to heaven, you'll meet this lady. And you should think, this lady cried like this before the cross. Have you thought about it? She didn't see the way Jesus died on the cross. She did not. Did she see? Did she even hear about the kind of painful death that Jesus went through? You think she's going to ask you in heaven, hey, my friend, I did not see anything. I did not see Jesus crushed on the cross. But just to think that Jesus can forgive. Do you know how much I cried at his feet? What are we going to tell? How long we'll pretend like Simon? Huh? How long we'll play Simon, right? Legalistic. And Jesus' question to Simon, okay? Simon, do you see this woman? Can you imagine what happened to Simon? Why did he have that perspective about the woman? Please tell me. I'll tell you why. My opinion. Okay, this is my opinion. Jesus stole the answer. Jesus did not tell, hey, you know one thing, Simon, you are behaving like this because your thinking is not correct. Did Jesus say that? No, that's not what Jesus said. But you know Simon got it wrong? I'll tell you where. Simon got it wrong not because of the judgment of the lady. Simon got it wrong. You see how Jesus replied. Listen very, 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 very carefully. Okay. I want you to understand this because this is very strong. Hey, just one second. Let me just set this thing. This is actually falling down my phone. I don't know. Is it clear? Okay. I want you to carefully watch verse 44. So important, okay? Do you see this woman? But you're expecting Jesus to talk about the woman, right? But Jesus did not talk about the woman. Jesus started talking about Simon. What is Simon's problem? Listen very carefully. What is Simon's problem? Jesus did not understand this lady's sinner. And Jesus is accepting her sacrifice. That was Simon's problem. You understand? That was Simon's problem. Jesus, how can you allow this lady? In his heart, he's telling, yeah? Jesus is telling, yeah, I entered your home. You gave me no water. See, that was the problem. If your relationship with Jesus is not pure, you will see everyone impure. Okay? Don't forget that. It is all about your, see, you will end up judging, jealousy, bitterness, all happens. Root causes that if your relation with Christ is not correct. You got it? If Simon was sacrificial, Simon washed the feet of Jesus and he loved Jesus so much. I'm telling you, he would have celebrated the acceptance of this lady. You got it? When we talk about, oh, I don't want to have bitterness, I don't have to have this, give me forgiveness, I think what you really need to ask is that how's your relation with Jesus? That's why Jesus asked the question. You remember? Hey, there were two people. You saw the story what Jesus said? There are two debtors. One owed 500 and one owed 50. If Simon knew that Simon owed 500, you think Simon would have had a problem with Jesus forgiving the 50? You're getting what I'm saying? When we think we are holier than other people and our relation with Christ is, is better than many people, I'm telling you, we will become unthinkable hypocrites. Oh, that person is not focused on missions. This person is not focused on missions. That person does not have the right living. That person does not read the Bible. Whatever I do, nothing changes. There's no compassion because, you know what? We haven't understood what did it take heaven to forgive your sin and what is your state. Getting what I'm saying? And Jesus said to him very clearly, but he washed my feet. You got it? It is not your experience. It is not your church. It is not how much you know the Bible. What is acceptable in the eyes of the Lord is only two things: a contrite and a broken spirit. Rest everything, God knows how to set it right. So, sin to avoid, if we think you are not the chief of the sinner, you need to go back to Christ. Paul said, it is a true thing that Jesus Christ died for the sinner, of whom I am the chief. See, that realization is the beauty. I always tell you, growth of Christian life is very simple. Every day you will feel more sinful, but you will sin less. You heard what I said? Every day you will feel more sinful, but you will sin less. So important. EIP, is there a promise to claim in this section? Not a promise to claim. The best promise is this. Verse 48 and 50. Beautiful promises. And you can come with your list, okay? And he said to her, your sins are forgiven. Verse 50. And he said to the woman, your faith. Oh, faith? What faith she had? What is the definition of faith? Please tell me what is the definition of faith. Your faith has saved you. What? This poor lady sitting at the feet of Jesus and crying his faith? Yes. When you know the problem of sin is only at the feet of Christ, and you're never going to leave the feet of Christ because you're so shattered, heaven looks at you and says, that is faith. We have redefined faith. I don't have something. I believe that I got it. I claim, I got it. That is faith. No, you don't read that in the Bible, okay? That's not my topic, but remember your brokenness, that, God, the only solution is at your feet, that I be at your feet and I ask, Lord, I'm sorry. Jesus looks at you and say, one thing, your faith is saved. I like the way the chapter ends. Go in peace. What peace? What? Have you thought? He'll go home and tell what? Jesus forgave me? Seriously? How is she going to live next day? If that is a sinful life which that made earning, she had a bread, she had a food out of the result of that sin. I don't know if it is, but let's say it is that, and then all the acquaintances she had, where she indulged in sin with whatever people you are. She didn't leave the city, right? She's going back to the same place. When he's going back to the same place, Jesus is not with her, right? What peace are you talking about? Simple. All what you need is the powerful statement of the maker of the universe who said to you, your sin is forgiven. That's all you need to face the entire world if you heard it rightly. You don't need anything else. You don't need anything else. The voice of the Lord. I always think, even with Zacchaeus also, I think other week also I was referring to saying that Zacchaeus come down. Okay, Zacchaeus came down, great. Jesus went to his home. Jesus said, today, salvation has come to this home. Jesus went, what is this guy going to do next day? Have you thought about it? How is he going to live his life? And just that voice is required. The maker of the universe said, Zacchaeus, that voice is all what is needed. What I'm trying to tell you is that if you really heard the voice of the Lord, that's all what you need for the rest of your life. That will keep you, that will take you. That's what Philippians 1 verse 6 is. The one who started a good work in you. The question is, did he start? Did you have that encounter at the feet of Jesus like this lady had? Promise, the greatest promise in the Bible is verse 48 and 50. Your sin is forgiven. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. For sin to avoid, don't be judgmental. You cannot stop being judgmental, okay, unless you have a right relation with the Lord. We promise to keep these two. Example to follow? The lady, obviously. Commandment to obey. What is a commandment? Come to Jesus for the right reason. It is beautiful to be at the feet of Jesus. It is beautiful to be at the feet of Jesus. There's no other place which is as beautiful as that. Let me read. I'll give you 7 stories. Do that homework. Read those stories, all the 7 stories. I have 15 minutes more. Yeah, I'll read the other story. Okay, Luke 19, 1 onwards. This is totally another story. This is about Zacchaeus. Then Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. And I want you to have this practice, please, all of you at home. Read these stories together. Okay, read the stories of hope together. Okay, Jesus come to Jericho. Now behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Okay? He sought to see Jesus. He sought to see who Jesus was, but could not because of the crowd, for he is short in stature. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said to him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down. For today I must stay at your house. So he made haste and came down, received him joyfully. When they saw it, they all complained, saying, he's going to be a guest with a man who's a sinner. Then Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, look, Lord, I will give my goods to the poor. If I've taken from anyone by false accusation, I'll restore it fourfold. And Jesus said, today salvation has come to this house because he also is the son of Abraham. Let me pause. This man, like the other lady, had every baggage not to come. Can, can you all hear me? Yeah. This man had every baggage not to come to Jesus. Rich, chief tax collector, well established. It is life threatening for him to follow Jesus. You know it? Have you thought about it? It's risky here. Who will provide for his children tomorrow? And why you need Jesus? He had no intention for Jesus to see him, right? Yeah, probably. I'm not sure. But he was sitting. He did not go. He did not sit on the sycamore tree and say, Jesus, can you look up? Did Zacchaeus say that? No, Zacchaeus did not say that. Why did Jesus even stop there? Probably heaven can answer that question. I think Jesus knew the heart of this man. But Zacchaeus, make haste, come down. Look at that. Zacchaeus, come down fast. Why? Jesus is in a hurry, or anyway, he's going to Zacchaeus. So that statement has so much of bearing for the destiny of this man. Okay. All what is required is just those three statements. Zacchaeus, come down fast. I'm coming to your house. That's it. Simple. Zacchaeus, come down fast. I'm coming to your house. Now we have a huge hindrance in the next. Everybody around them complaining, he's gone to be a guest of this, who's a sinner. Look at the way Zacchaeus came down. Right? Zacchaeus came fast, made haste and came down. Probably, I don't know, my imagination. This guy jumped from the top of the sycamore tree. I don't know. Probably yes. He fell down. He it's such an embarrassing situation. Can you think that this chief tax collector just coming down fast? Why am I telling all this? I'm telling you the relation, the connection with Christ is radical, yeah. You understand? It is not like, oh, we think that way. If you heard Jesus, Zacchaeus, that voice, that's radical change. Did Zacchaeus reply to all these people, hey, why are you complaining? We would have picked a fight. Zacchaeus did not reply. Jesus also did not reply. You notice that? Verse 9. Who asked Zacchaeus to give all the money to the poor? Who asked him to give fourfold? He's going to explain to his wife his decision, seriously, that night. He's going to tell his wife, hey, sorry, what happened? Jesus, I decided to give all the wealth out. All the tax collectors who's going to come, hey, guys, you know one thing? You guys were supposed to get your shares, and now no more shares. I've given everything to the poor. Huh? Is that what you guys? What it cost him did not matter because he knew what was really costly. That was a relation with Christ. I've tried to comprehend this whole thing, what Zacchaeus did. Now you understand what Paul said, I consider everything rubbish. Now we are trying to consider everything rubbish. That's our problem, you understand? That's rubbish. This is rubbish. God, make me change my perspective, Lord. Change my perspective. What perspective Zacchaeus changed? Only one thing. The value of the sin that is forgiven. The preciousness of the Savior. That he could just think that Jesus stepped into his house. Have you thought about that? That's all what mattered for Zacchaeus. And Jesus, today salvation has come to this house because he is also the son of Abraham. What qualification any of these people have, and what did they do? How did this so immediately and instantly happen? And Jesus, on what basis, is telling all these people his sin is immediately forgiven? This man, salvation has come home. How does even Jesus know? Because what if these people go back tomorrow? What if this is an emotional decision? On what basis is Jesus telling that? I'm telling you, coming to Christ is radical and it's an encounter. Nothing can replace that. You want to do slice and dice this anyway. That's the truth. So I read two stories of hope. I want you to read remaining stories. I'll share the reference. I'm just sharing 7. There are so many other stories too. These are not the only 7. So read it together. Read it with your friend this week. And have a very simple conversation. Try to talk about what really happened over there. These are not parables, okay? These are actual stories. These are actual people who encountered Christ before the cross. Okay? How much more our life should be radical. Okay? So go through that. Sin to avoid, promises to claim, examples to follow, commandments to keep. What is Jesus doing in this? And what is radical change? Go through it. There is hope. There is no one beyond hope. Don't be the crowd. Don't be the Simon. It is easy to be the crowd who walked with Jesus. Do you know that this crowd was walking with Jesus and Zacchaeus was not walking with Jesus? Do you know that Simon was the person who got the opportunity to invite Jesus to his house, not the sinful lady? Simon was the host. She was an uninvited guest. So be very careful. It's an encounter. God is looking at the heart of people. God bless you.